Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of True Scary Stories. Tonight's story is called Wild Animals. My best friend Pete and I took a year off before enrolling in college after graduating from high school. Part of our plan was to become long-term campers at Mount Rainier National Park. People called us squatters, but we had homes to which we could return. Pete and I found an open space a quarter-mile off a trail and pitched a small tent. We brought food and water to last for weeks, utensils, an alcohol stove, and several storage containers. I brought along fishing gear too, not only for recreation, but also to provide a dinner occasionally. Pete and I also carried slingshots and animal spray to help keep predators at bay. Black bears and mountain lions can cause trouble. The first few days were fun. We hiked, fished, and swam during the day. We would hit our tents at nightfall and stay up talking about old times and future plans before falling asleep. I woke during the fourth night, having to go to the bathroom. I walked to the forest's edge to answer nature's call. A rustle came from 30 yards away from my 10 o'clock. This didn't alarm me since we heard strange sounds all the time. Pete and I woke at dawn. He lit the stove as I went to get supplies from the containers. One container was nowhere to be found. We searched around the camp but couldn't find it. I informed Pete about the rustling I heard the previous night and suggested a bear carried it off. He agreed. We spent the morning hiking and the afternoon fishing. We returned to our camp near dusk to find another container missing. We increased our search radius this time, yet we didn't find it. Pete, an avid hunter, noticed several bear tracks while we looked. We devised a plan to deal with the burly thief. We would stand watch overnight in the event the beast returned. Pete would take the first 2-hour shift. I would relieve him at that point, then alternate until dawn. Not only was the bear spray close by, but also our slingshot and 3/8 carbon pellets. I had no trouble falling asleep, feeling we could handle any situation. I woke to Pete's whisper. He said we had a visitor. I heard rustling 10 yards from the tent. Footsteps approached the side where we kept our remaining container. I grabbed the bear spray with one hand and a flashlight in the other. Pete took up arms. Without making a sound, I commando crawled to the tent's entrance. I stuck my head out along with the hand holding the flashlight, preparing to catch the bear red-handed. The attack came from the tent's other side. Several blows rained down upon the canvas, knocking several of the poles and stakes loose. The tent collapsed on Pete as I pulled myself out from underneath it. I pointed the light in the attacker's direction, but it failed to locate it. I baby-stepped towards the clearing's edge as I heard Pete make his escape from his canvas prison. He was soon by my side, inspecting all the forest's nooks and crannies with me. We heard footsteps sprint from the tent in the opposite direction. I turned the light on whatever it was, but it disappeared into a thick brush, still unidentified. However, it moved on 2 legs, not 4. The chase was on. We bowled through the brush and exited at the base of a large wooded hill. The light blazed our trail, but the footsteps ahead were our guide. My legs burned and my heart raced as we climbed to the top. I didn't see the container as we ran down the other side. It struck my head, causing me to drop my flashlight and fall to the ground. I picked it up and shined it straight ahead. There stood a disheveled old man in tattered clothes, covering filthy skin. He took a defensive posture, as if preparing to assault us if we took one more step towards him. The snap of a branch sounded behind us. We turned to see a second vagrant standing on the hilltop. He was holding a rock in his hand. We heard the first man take a step towards us. Pete and I turned again. I shined the light towards him and beyond. We noticed a small camp made up of 6 or 7 tents at the hill's bottom. A rustling arose from the surrounding forest. Our flashlight greeted 8 more ragged men. Some held rocks, others held branches. The men closed in. One man held up his rock as I approached. I placed the light on it to find what looked like a human skull. I inspected the other men. The branches they held were, in fact, large bones, human femur bones perhaps. I raised the can of bear spray while Pete lifted his slingshot. The action caused the man to stop in his tracks. We backed up, alternating the light shine onto each man to ensure they all kept at bay. The men at our rear parted as we approached, allowing us out of the circle. All 10 men stood on the hilltop as we backed down the hillside. Once there was a safe distance between us and them, we sprinted back to our camp, pulled our knapsacks from the collapsed tent, and ran to the closest public campsite. A park ranger accompanied us back to our tent the next morning. Everything was gone. We continued over the hilltop to the campsite we ran across the night before. Nothing was there. The men had vanished. "You probably ran across a group of squatters," said the ranger. "The park has been receiving complaints for weeks. I suggest you stay at an official park campsite from now on." We left for home later that morning, never to return. I still wonder if the squatters were holding on to human bones that night, or if my eyes were simply playing tricks on me. I also wonder whenever I hear about people who go missing in the Mount Rainier National Park.